out to over 70 briefings throughout the province, and we've been able to reach out to rural BC, to urban BC, and that was really, really important to us as grassroots, is to hear back from the people that would be working and implementing this type of plan. And what we found after all of those briefings and all of that feedback is that fundamentally none of the key elements that we put out would change. Obviously, people had many, many questions. There were some people that didn't agree with the plan, but we put that back out too and said, if you don't agree with something, give us something back that would move us forward, because we really believe that right now the status quo isn't good enough for us. So the key elements haven't changed. Some of the order of it for really strong reasons have changed, and the wording to make it strengthen has changed. There are 6 key highlights. And our very first one is moving to an Early Care and Learning Act in BC. So this would hold true the fundamental basis of what our plan is. This would legislate and enshrine the rights of all children to access childcare services throughout the province, no matter where you live. So going out into rural BC, people have said, what about the people, the young children, when there's a family of 4 that live way up the mountain? What about them? Who's going to look after those children? Well, this is to say those children deserve the exact same quality and engaging services as a child that lives in downtown Vancouver. It also looks at enshrining the rights that families would be a part of this, a part of developing programs within their communities that they see fit, that really enshrine the rights of the families to be part of this as well. The things that's different between an Early Care and Learning Act and what we know now as the School Act, all children, like in the School Act, have the right to access childcare services. And I know, moving from a rural community in Prince Rupert, I knew that my 12-year-old son would be able to access a school, that was my inherent right. I pay taxes to have that for my child. But I knew if he was 3 years old, I might not be able to find that for him, and I wouldn't be able to work, and I wouldn't be able to provide for my family, and I wouldn't know what those services might look like. It would be a guessing game for me. So that's a change for us, that these would be legislated, that every child would be able to access a program in their community, in their area, where they live, where families work, to move that forward. First Nations would also have control of their own services so that they can govern and produce and work within their own communities to have legislated services in their communities that work for their societies as well. Has everybody heard of the words schoolification? This is something that came up particularly in our groups, in our advisory group, and it comes up over and over. And families and people that work in the field are really, really nervous about this downward spiral academic readiness focus for younger and younger children. They have visions of children sitting in desks, sitting in rows, where evidence has shown that true play-based, holistic experiences that work on social development, physical development, and as well as those cognitive skills is the best way to teach children, to engage children, and to give them the best start in life. We feel enshrining this act will also bring our sector to a place that we can enter into an equal partnership with the education system. So it will raise our sector up to bring those core values and beliefs of care within our practice up the sector, and we're cheeky enough to really feel that that is the way to go, and people are excited about that. Our next highlight is moving early childhood education into a new home in the Ministry of Education. And this is where we do get lots of questions. Why would you pick this? And there's some really core reasons why we would go to this direction. So the Ministry of Education, there's key elements that are offered within this ministry already. I know that my child is entitled to have education, so people come to expect it. It's already publicly funded. People expect to pay taxes to make this work. We know that when there's talk about a school closing down, people go out and they protest. They want to keep their community schools because it's important to them. There is democratic control over the whole process. People are elected in their communities to sit as a school board trustees. They govern how this works, and we know that's a really core important piece because they have the connection to the community and how those services are developed. There's also, like I said, a public understanding and support. So we know when we go and shop in the grocery line, somebody will say, "What do you do for a living?" I say, "I'm a teacher." Everybody knows what a teacher is. I say, "I'm an early childhood educator," and you sort of kind of get a dazed look. People don't understand. People don't understand the fundamental beliefs that we have about the genuine caring of children, the relationships we build with children and families within our communities, and overall there's fair compensation for the workforce within education. You know, there's always ways to improve every sector, but right now, comparatively, they do much better than the early childhood sector. As well as there's an infrastructure to deliver. A couple of years ago, our past premier makes an announcement there's going to be full school day kindergarten, and guess what? A couple of years later, every child has access to that. We know kindergarten's volunteer, but they do have access. There's a spot in every school district for children. We know in political life, to bring something big like this forward, that we need that kind of structure to make it real, because right now we know that childcare comes into this kind of motion that we're really, really fragmented. We have so many different programs, like we have family childcare, we have group daycare, we have after-school care, we have preschools. There's so many things that people don't understand, but our system is so fragmented throughout our communities that it's hard for us to deliver. Where the school districts have that infrastructure, they have people that are hired that do stats on how many children are in the communities. They have people that build buildings and look at all those pieces, so they really have that infrastructure. There is a new role for boards of education to play within this plan, because we do believe that having that democratic control is really an important factor of this plan. But elected boards of education would not only be mandated, but would be funded to run this service for this plan, develop and govern and deliver this early care and learning in all their districts. So plans would be developed within the community partners and the municipalities would come together. This would be a key place for parents and families to come together to really plan what would work within their communities to deliver, but they would be responsible. So when that family or that person said, "What about my 2 children that live 20 miles up the mountain?" those children would count in this plan. A plan would be developed so that all children would have services provided for them. When people wonder how would this work in my community, the communities would develop the plan. So it's not one big plan that would be made, you know, in Victoria. Every community would have its own plan to look at what's really needed for them. And as well, there would be dedicated staff and support to the early care and learning plan. So people would learn and understand what early care and learning is, because we know this is a big shift, a big change for people to look at what we do. Does that mean you're talking about all programs moving into the schools, so programs that already exist? And we aren't talking about that. We're talking about using existing programs and facilities as they stand now. So only when appropriate facilities in our schools would meet the needs of young children, so they would have to be developed and work for children for their particular age group. Our fourth highlight is the Early Years Center, and this is really exciting coming from the field myself. This would be a new name for all early care and learning programs for children from birth to 5. So we're still talking about school age entry being 5 years old, but now we're talking about having this network, a system, and it's actually in your book on page 16 if you care to look. But this would be a system that we can have a network between our communities. So when we're talking about starting up this program where child care centers can come together, family child care centers could come together in a network, in a community, and work together. So they can share resources, they can share information. So just like they know what a school is, they'll know what an early years center network is. And this is a really big push. So we know that this is a way more appropriate alternative. We feel it's a way more appropriate term than moving down the pre-kindergarten phrase. It would integrate all types of programs, full-time, part-time, and giving parents many more options to meet that play-based, diverse approaches to childcare within our field. It would also be staffed strictly by early childhood educators and family childcare providers within these networks.
The plan suggests that early year centers networks would first begin by bringing together existing providers who would affiliate into networks. So it welcomes in existing. Then the second picture shows as well that once existing providers have been brought in, then boards of education would be responsible for developing new networks to meet the unmet need. And so it builds on what exists, but growth would be through publicly delivered services through the Board of Education.
Yeah, so we're not talking about closing any centers down. We're inviting everybody that exists now. We know that there's a huge unmet need right now, so that they would have to keep developing. To be part of these early years centers networks, there would be accountability for this as well. But we're looking at the accountability to be on the programs and not the children, which is a big difference from other services. We'd be capping parent fees, and this is really exciting for families. We're talking about having a cap fee of $10 a day for full-time, $7 a day for part-time, and for families of an income of $40,000 and under, childcare services would be free. And we know this would be a huge impact for our families. Being a young mother myself, I made choices about my childcare based on how much money I made. And they weren't always the best choices, and I know that. As well, working in the field, we have so many people entering the field, good, caring people, really interested in this field, and after 5 years, they're gone. And we know the relationships of children and families working together and working with children. And when there's that high staff turnover, we know that's not a good thing for children. So within one of the accountability measures, the people that would apply, or the centers that would apply, or the societies that would apply, they would be given the money to improve wages and the educations of the workforce. And I'll talk more about the education of the workforce. So we're talking about moving to an average of $25 an hour plus 20% benefits. And I'm so excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, I might be able to retire one day. So, and a lot of people, that isn't an option. That is not an option in our field. To be part of this, that you would need to include all children within the networks, that even those, all children, including those with extra support needs within the networks, all children would be supported, as well as it would meet the demonstrated need within the community plans. So those community plans will be a key aspect in developing and new childcare services in our communities. Programs are consistent with the early learning framework. Most people probably in this room know what that is, but we've talked to many people that don't know, different kinds of groups, and it's a key document that's recognized, and it has been developed through the Ministry of Education, and it's really recognized within the early childhood field. This a document that we can use that really captures the core beliefs of the holistic development of children. Some of these pieces have come from other places, and I think that we've been able to enhance them to work for BC. So like I said before, school entry still does remain at age 5. This would be able to enhance kindergarten. So we're talking about early childhood educators coming into the education system and working alongside with kindergarten teachers. There's 3 key elements of why we would want to do that. Number 1, it would lower the educator to child ratio within the classrooms. So teachers, there's amazing teachers out there, kindergarten teachers, they're moving to this full school day kindergarten, and full school day kindergarten is also to bring this holistic play-based approach, but we have questions. How can one teacher do that with 1 to 20 children or 1 to 22 children? We know how difficult that would be, so that would sort of balance that out, as well as would cover a full working day and a working year for families. A full day is not 9 to 3 for most people. It's much longer within the day. It would develop trusting relationships, and the children would be used to the people that are caring for them. We just know that this is a really, really strong piece to the plan, as well as it would enhance the early childhood educators' education practice within the schools. Kindergarten grade 1 would go with the early childhood educators and teachers relationship, where school age care would start now at grade 2 and up. So boards of education would again be responsible for school-age care, and existing school-age providers would come into the system with the same accountability measures as the rest of the sector. The boards of education would develop new programs where the need is necessary within their communities. So investing in the workforce. This is where we get many questions within our sector because they wonder, how is this going to affect me? And we know that success within these programs really depends on well-respected, well-educated, and well-compensated employees. So we are talking about the Bachelors of Education as being the new educational standard for our sector, as well as the diploma minimum for group and family and school-age care, where we know right now that isn't in our legislated responsibilities. So we are talking about investing in the whole sector to bring the whole sector up to move towards parity. This plan would support the sector to upgrade its qualifications over a certain time period. The next steps is now we are moving to a place where we mobilize the community support to call on decision makers. So this is where we're coming back to you. We're asking decision makers to commit to this vision and the implementation of this plan, pass the early care and learning legislation as the first key element of the plan, develop a stable 5-year budget so that we can really show that this could work for children and families of BC, as well as to prioritize early years centers to get those full-time programs going and stable within our province to really help those working families within our communities. So here we are at endorsing the plan. April, we came out with the finalized plan, asking people to really get out there into their communities. We've been able to go to many tables and ask for official endorsation. We have a website page that people can click on and endorse online to endorse the plan. So we're asking community players, we're asking you to go out to your community tables, other early child development tables that you sit on, your board of directors that you might sit on within your society, and show them the plan and talk about it and what this can mean for them, what it can mean for the children and family of BC.